Brad Williams, Labor Compliance Group, in a continuation of this DIR series of videos. For those that went through the initial tests and quasi-registered, in other words, you got to the point where it's pending, you did great. For those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, go check out the previous video on registration. Here we are at this homepage again. And what we're going to do is talk about managing your contract employees. And what this will require is a lot of information. In other words, all of your employee information. And I'll walk you through a couple different ways to do this. All you're going to do, clearly you're logged in. Your name is going to be up here, whatever fictitious name, or if you're actually logged in with a paid registration, then hit Manage Contract Employees. Now, what we're going to do is look at the different options here. Now, the question you may have is unlink from business. If you unlink from business, you're gone. You're basically erasing yourself. You don't want to do that unless you have gone through this entire format, the testing format, and you want to unlink yourself, then do so. All you're going to have is this name up here, and everything else should be truncated, should be removed. But here we have a bulk action, import employees and add new employees. Now I went through and I tried to use this import employees, and I'll just show you what I did. You go through import employees, you're gonna have this bulk upload employees, and here is a Excel template, and this is what it looks like. You're gonna have this information. I completed all this stuff, and I don't know what their database will accept. I just put some random employee ID numbers. In the end, you're just going to need to go through here, and here's the biggest joke. If you have a classification here, you could see if you click this particular icon, it just goes forever. Try to override it by shutting this off, and which I would suggest you do. You can just go up to View and then shut off this particular tool. But being that this is what it is, there's over 1,000 different choices here. Leave it to DIR to make it a little more challenging. I would try to disable this. Otherwise, test it out. It didn't work for me. I uploaded it and it just didn't do anything. I uploaded it and I hit submit. I got nothing. Give it a shot. It may work for you. And if so, comment. Let me know what you did in order to work this bulk upload system. Otherwise, you're going to have to go through, and this bulk action is complementary to this import. You can hit this, and it's essentially going to go select employees, and I don't really know what this is all about. Do not add attachments. That's not the same thing as what I just showed you. This is just some other thing, and DIR doesn't explain what it is. But you're going to see this over and over and over, and it's not applicable. Select employees. Once you have all your employees loaded, let's see Joe and see if anything shows up. How about Smith? How about Carpenter? Okay, so there's Bob Carpenter, and now what do? Well, Bob Carpenter's already in there, and it's already activated. So I guess if you want to deactivate Bob, you can do that. But with that being said, I'm not finding this very helpful. Leaving you with the only alternative, and that is add new employee. DIR is still working all their kinks out. And this is what you're going to need to do. You're going to need the first name of the employee, and you can see what's mandatory or required. So you have a first name, last name, street address, zip code, county, city, state, etc., etc. You're going to need to input all that information. Now you're also going to need the craft and the other information. It's going to ask whether it's a journeyman. And if it's a journeyman, what experience do they have? And they're going to have some acronyms there. One is, have they been doing it for 5 years or whatever the criteria is. Then the other one is, did they go through an apprenticeship program? And you have to indicate one way or the other. Now I'll show you what I did with this example. I went with Bob Carpenter. It's a little confusing here. Don't get this confused. This is the account of Joe Smith. Now when you register, oddly, Joe Smith, it's going to lead everything you do here. So if you actually put in ABC Construction, it would say ABC Construction. Then you're going to have the information I just showed, and it's going to show up here. And you can go in and you can alter this stuff. You can edit this as you want. And then, as I said, you have this employee classification. So you have to click Bob. It shows Carpenter, and if you want to change that, you could see all the different choices. If you have employee, again, it's Bob Carpenter, but you're going to have a list of everything here. And then I said there's a couple of different, so you have an apprentice, and then you have none, and then you have journeyman. Is that clear? Good. Then if you want to continue adding your employees, you're going to get to this point here. You're going to hit save, but then it's going to have up here on the right, if it's new, you may have to hit submit in order for this to activate. So for example, we'll just go add new employee and we'll go Jim Concrete. He has a 444-555-666. He lives in 23 Tree Street in 12555 and County, Sutter, City, Jackson, and State, California. And then you're going to have to do this, add, and here's your craft. Again, you can cheat here. You can go, so they don't have anything for mason, cement mason. Okay, I tried to put in mason, but it wouldn't show up here. You're going to have to just be, extremely patient when you do this. So now we have cement mason, and then we have this apprentice and a journey. So we hit journeyman, and then I said, you're going to need to know what their certification is. They have OJT and graduate. Graduate just means they went through an apprenticeship program. OJT means it's just experience. You hit add, and then up here, you have to hit the submit. That's the same thing as hitting save. So hit submit, and we have this new employee. Ignore all this other noise here, and then go back here. I would say use the back arrow, and now we have Jim Concrete, Joe Smith. Now deactivate doesn't delete, all right? And it's really hard to determine whether they're active. Okay, now refresh, and you can't recognize whether Jim is active or not. So if we hit Jim, all right, again, there's no way to tell if they're active or not. Activate. And again, I don't know what that means. Thank you very much, DIR. And that's it. But that's how you add employee. I would suggest you fool around with this bulk actions and see what happens. And in terms of trying to get back home, you're just kind of, they don't have a previous, they don't have much here. They need to work a lot of this stuff out. You got to go back and you're going to see your managed contractor employees. Okay. Oh yeah. And let me just point out one other thing here. Let's say you've registered, and I probably need to add this to the registration. You need to be tied to a particular group. So request addition to a project team. What does that mean? That means you're gonna hit, and this is where you want to hit test. You don't want to get overly complex here. But if it's a particular project you're working on, and again, if you don't have this project ID number, you're going to be lost. So that's what you're going to always tie to. You need to tie your company to a project in order to submit your certified payrolls tied to that particular project. So your ID, this project ID number, will tie you to the awarding agent and whatever contract you sign. So make sure you understand this request addition to a project team. Otherwise, you're going to go, well, how do I deal with this CPR stuff? If you're not part of a team, then there's no way you're tied to that project. Understand that? Hopefully you do. And then from there, you're going to have this CPR and other information, and I'll produce a video on that one. But if you have any comments or questions, I've made this confusing, or more confusing than DIR makes it. I kind of like their old system. It was simple. It was unsecure, and that's why they had to beef up their security here. They had a lot of loopholes, and there were too many. It was too porous. The average individual could peek into a company's information and maybe exploit it. I don't know, but they beefed up their security, less information available for public viewing, which is good, but they need to work out some kinks. Now, if you're completely confused, or if all this is new to you, in other words, Public Works is someone introduced to you and you go, I don't know anything about it. I offer a bunch of courses that focus strictly on the compliance side. In other words, the rules and the regulations related to California Public Works and federal Davis-Bacon projects. In other words, you're doing prevailing wages. There are a lot of rules and regulations. And if you don't follow the rules and regulations, you're going to be subject to some serious penalties. In California, the average penalty is $82,000. It's probably higher now, but 5 years ago it was $82,000. It's probably $150 now. But in order to get a better handle on DIR and Davis-Bacon, I offer this particular course here. It's 6 hours, hence it's detailed. Why? Because there's a lot of nuances. And if you walk down this crooked path, you're going to be seriously fined, and you don't want to do that. Also, navigating DIR, absolutely critical, because if you don't know where the information is, you're going to do wild ass guess type estimates, and that'll get you in trouble. If you're doing Davis-Bacon, here's a great introduction to understanding how Davis-Bacon works versus DIR. And there's a few other great courses that I offer, so take a look. If you have any follow-up questions, if this is confusing as all heck, that you weren't able to register because you messed up or your test system isn't working, comment and I'll see what I can do to try to help you out. Thanks for watching. Hope that helps. See you soon.